Hi, today I'll teach you how to use a compressor like a pro. My name's Styx, let's go. So, what can a compressor do to a sound? First, even out the track's dynamics by reducing overly loud sections. For example, a word or phrase in a vocal track might be too loud. A compressor can smooth out these volume inconsistencies.
You don't see how good all these bad ideas could be. You don't see how good all these bad ideas could be.
Second, it can bring out quiet content, making elements that were hidden without compression more noticeable. For example, we can amplify the fading tail of reverb following a drum hit. Number 3. It can create or enhance a peak at the start of each sound. For example, in a synth or guitar solo, lack of clarity due to a soft attack can be fixed by making the initial peak of each note more defined. Number 4. The opposite. It can reduce the attack of each note, softening the initial peak. For example, acoustic guitar can sometimes have overly bright attacks. A compressor can smooth these out, creating a softer sound. Number 5. It can add density and richness to the sound. For example, a drum loop may sound weak, but using a compressor, especially in parallel mode, can add energy and punch. Number 6. It can enrich the sound with harmonics, like tube, transistor, etc. For example, vocals may not sound open or clean enough. Using LA to A compressor, for example, can make vocals more open and sparkling, thanks to the tube harmonics it introduces.
I'd like to be everything you want. I'd like to be everything you want.
Number 7. It can glue the mix together by applying gentle compression across the entire track. Compressors are often used on the master channel or group buses to create more cohesive and rich sound. Number 8. Compressor can lower the volume of one track when another track is active. For example, dance synths or guitars in a mix can be dynamically reduced in volume when vocals are present. It helps important parts stand out in dance mixes. Number 9. It can make sounds more prominent in large mixes through parallel compression. Sending various tracks to a parallel compression channel helps these tracks sound fuller and more present in the mix.
Lost in whispers of the night. Lost in whispers of the night.
Number 10. It can increase the overall loudness of a track by reducing the dynamic range. This works on individual tracks as well as on the master channel. As you can see, a compressor is capable of a lot. That's why it's essential to fully understand how it works and to be able to use it freely. Compression is often explained in a very convoluted way, which causes many people to feel intimidated by this device. I'll try to explain how a compressor works in simple and clear terms as visually as possible. Right now, you're looking at the sound signal display in FabFilter Pro C plugin. I've intentionally set it up so you can't hear the sound. This is important for understanding the logic of the process. Just imagine it's a vocal phrase or a note played on an instrument or a drum hit. For now, the specific sound doesn't matter. So, the sound has a build-up, a peak, in our case 0 dB, and a decay. By the way, you should know that in digital sound, 0 dB full scale is the maximum peak level. All values quieter than the maximum are expressed as negative numbers. So what does a compressor do to a sound? It reduces the volume after the signal exceeds the threshold level set in the threshold parameter. Let's test this. Let's set threshold to -12 dB. In this plugin, the threshold is represented by a dashed line. As you can see, the signal successfully exceeds this level, but nothing happens to it. Why is that? The reason is that the compressor reduces the signal in a specific ratio, defined by the ratio parameter. Right now, the ratio is set to 1:1, meaning there is no effect on the volume. What comes in is exactly what comes out. To make the signal that exceeds the threshold reduce by half, we need to set the ratio to 2:1. This means that instead of the 12 dB from -12 to 0 being fully passed, only half of it, 6 dB, will pass through. Let's test this. We set the ratio to 2:1. Look what happened to the signal. The darker graph shows the original signal, while the lighter one shows the processed signal. Indeed, the signal now only goes up by 6 dB after exceeding the threshold, and its maximum level is now -6 dB. So, if we use a ratio of 4:1 instead of 12 dB, the signal will only rise by 3 dB, since 12 divided by 4 equals 3. Let's test this. We set the ratio to 4:1. As you can see, after crossing the threshold, the signal now only rises by 3 dB, with a maximum level of -9 dB. As you understand, -9 dB is just 3 dB louder than -12 dB. In other words, the higher the ratio, the more signal is reduced after exceeding the threshold. But what happens if we set the ratio to 100:1? In theory, the signal shouldn't be able to exceed the threshold at all, as it would be reduced 100 times. Let's test it. Let's set the ratio to 100:1. Look, the signal indeed hits the threshold like a ceiling and can't go any higher. This is essentially how limiters work. They prevent the signal from exceeding a specified level. At this stage, you can see how a compressor can be used to reduce the portion of a sound that exceeds the threshold. Notice that the signal's volume is currently reduced immediately upon reaching the threshold level. However, there are still compression parameters we haven't used yet. Let's talk about attack. Right now, the attack is set to 0, but let's increase its value. Look at what happened. Now the signal is not reduced immediately after exceeding the threshold, but with a slight delay. As a result, the sound now has a noticeable peak at the beginning, which wasn't there before. Let's increase the attack value further. Notice how the peak becomes even wider. This means that by adjusting the attack parameter, the compressor delays its response to the sound crossing the threshold. This delay creates an emphasized peak in the sound. In other words, attack is the delay in the compressor's reaction. So, if the attack value is high, the natural attack of the sound is preserved, as the compressor doesn't immediately affect it due to the delayed response. Once again, by increasing the attack, you allow the initial portion of the sound to pass through without being affected by the compressor. Now let's talk about release. Currently, the signal stops being compressed immediately after its level drops below the threshold. This happens because the release time is set to 0. So what happens if we increase the release value? Let's check. We increase the release time. Now the compression fades out more gradually and smoothly instead of stopping instantly. Let's briefly return the release time to 0. I want to draw your attention to the fact that the tail of the sound signal is louder with a short release than with a longer one. Right now, the release is set to 0. Notice the loudness of signal's tail. Now I increase the release again. Notice how the tail becomes quieter. This means that if you want to emphasize the tail of a sound, a short release is more suitable. But if you want a smoother exit from compression, a longer release works better. Now let's discuss the knee parameter. I'll set the attack back to 0 to make this clearer. This is straightforward. When using hard knee, as we are now, compression kicks in immediately as soon as the signal exceeds the threshold. Now I'll increase the knee value. Watch what happens. The transition into compression becomes more gradual and smoother. This is well suited for vocals, for example, while hard knee is great for drums. Finally, notice how the overall sound has become quieter after applying the compressor. Before compression, the peak level was 0 dB, but now it's -12 dB. To compensate for this loss of volume, we use the makeup gain parameter. Now I increase the makeup gain, and the entire signal becomes louder after compression, allowing us to bring it back up to a peak level of 0 dB. The shape of the sound's attack and release has changed due to our adjustments. Compared to the pre-compression state, it now appears that the attack has become sharper and the tail of the sound is louder. As a result, after applying compression and makeup gain, the sound will be perceived as louder than it was before compression, even though the peak levels are the same. This leads many people to think that the compressor makes the sound louder, but that's not actually the case. The sound becomes quieter, but it gives us the ability to use the makeup gain knob to increase the track's volume due to the lower peak levels of the compressed signal. So I think you now understand the principle of how compression works. Next, I'll show you visually once again how a compressor can be used for different purposes. So example number 1. What you're seeing now is essentially limiting the sound and maximizing its loudness. This is already one possible use case. So number 2. Now let's emphasize the attack. I'll quickly adjust the compressor, so watch what I'm doing. I'll increase the attack. Done! By using a higher attack setting, I've created a pronounced peak at the start of the signal, even though this peak wasn't there before compression. The signal's tail is also amplified due to the fast release setting. Example number 3. Now I increase the release. The emphasis of the attack remains, but we don't boost the tail's volume now, so this fulfills a different musical purpose. And now it's the perfect time to tell you about another important point. I'll show you how a sound can be ruined by an overly long release. I'll gradually increase the release time, and I want you to watch what happens to the attack of the next sound. Do you see? With a release that's too long, the compressor doesn't have time to recover before the next sound arrives. As a result, the first part of the new sound is immediately subjected to volume reduction, even before it exceeds the threshold. If we imagine that these are drum hits, an overly long release will soften their attack, making the drums sound muddy and lifeless. So remember, the compressor should have enough time to recover before the next volume spike occurs. If you're starting to feel intimidated and think this all sounds too complicated, don't worry. First of all, many compressors have an auto-release control that automatically manages this. Second, you can easily calculate the maximum release time in milliseconds that you should avoid exceeding. To do this, you need to know the shortest note durations used in the specific music track. Often these are 16th notes. So to avoid interfering with the next note, the compressor's release should be shorter than the duration of a 16th note. How do you find the duration of a 16th note in milliseconds? It's simple. Divide 60,000 milliseconds by the tempo of the song and then divide that result by 4. For example, for a tempo of 120 BPM, divide 60,000 by 120 to get 500 milliseconds. This is your quarter note. Then divide 500 by 4 to get 125 milliseconds. You remember that there are 4 16th notes in one quarter note. So this is a 16th note in milliseconds. This is the release time you should avoid exceeding at this tempo if there are 16th notes in the track. But in general, trust me, you'll be able to hear it without any calculations if the attack starts to get ruined by a release that's too long. Let's talk types of compressors. The evolution of electronics and the pursuit of perfect sound have led to the creation of various types of compressors, each with unique characteristics, strengths and weaknesses. The primary difference lies in their gain control components. which define the compressor's attack and release characteristics. These are the most common types of compressors. First, optical compressors or opto compressors. Optical compressors use an optoelectronic element, typically an LED and a photoresistor. The level of compression changes with the signal's loudness, making these compressors smooth and ideal for gentle volume control. They are often chosen for vocals and bass. Notable models: Telectronics LA2A, LA3A, Avalon VT737 SP, and TubeTech CL1B. Next type is Vari-Mu compressors, also known as tube compressors. Vari-Mu compressors use tubes as the gain control element. Their compression ratio increases with the signal level, creating a smooth and musical release. They are known for their distinctive sound and rich harmonic coloration, making them especially popular for mastering applications. Notable models: Fairchild 670, Manley Vari-Mu, RCA BA6A, and Universal Audio 175 and 176. Next type: diode bridge compressors. These compressors use diodes to control gain, allowing independent adjustment of the compression parameters. Diode bridge compressors add a unique coloration due to their harmonic distortion, which can be relatively high. Professionals often value these compressors for their distinctive sound. Notable models: EMI TG12413 limiter, Chandler TG1 limiter, NIF 33609. Next very popular type of compressors is VCA compressors, voltage controlled amplifier. VCA compressors are transistor-based and known for their fast attack times, making them suitable for rhythmic instruments. They can emphasize instruments' attack without significant distortion, though strong compression can sometimes lead to high-frequency roll-off. Notable models: DBX 160, Focusrite Red 3, API 2500, SSL Master Bus Compressor. Next, FET compressors. FET means Field Effect Transistor. Known for their quick response and distinct coloration, FET compressors excel at handling fast peaks. They add energy and character, making them ideal for vocals, drums, everything. Notable models: Uray 1176, Chandler Limited Germanium compressor. Next type: PWM compressors. PWM means pulse width modulation. PWM compressors use a digitally controlled analog circuit, often capable of emulating various compressor behaviors, which makes them versatile for different styles. They can switch between smooth Opto-like compression and more aggressive VCA-like performance. Notable models: Crane Song Tracker, Empirical Labs Distressor. Next type: digital compression plugins. Designed as plugins, digital compressors offer unique functions not possible in analog devices, such as look-ahead and reverse compression. They often include advanced features like tempo-synced release times for rhythmic effects, as well as sidechain capabilities, and can deliver a wide range of effects for modern music production needs. Now let me show you in practice how to set up a compressor. To make sure we're speaking the same language, let's agree on what we call strong compression, medium compression, and light compression. Most compressors have a gain reduction indicator, which shows how much the compressor is reducing the signal. We'll use this as our reference. Compression up to 6 dB will be called light. Between 6 and 12 dB will be medium, and anything over 12 dB will be considered strong compression. And one more thing. Before compressing any sound, always ask yourself, why am I compressing this? Sometimes compression isn't needed at all. You may use some high-quality sample which already was compressed. By the way, I have a preset pack for FabFilter Pro C2 compressor. This is a highly flexible and advanced compressor with a wide range of algorithms, and my preset pack covers all possible sounds, so it's a super convenient workflow booster. You'll find the link in the description. So let's go to our practical examples. Kick drum. For kick drums, medium or strong compression is often used, with a ratio of 4:1 or higher. Based on experience, the attack is often set in the range of 10 to 20 milliseconds. Of course, these values can vary depending on the source material and your taste. Snare drum. For snares, medium or strong compression is also common, with a ratio of 4:1 or higher. The attack is usually between 1 and 10 milliseconds. Let's use 1176 compressor for this. It's excellent for fast sounds. The 1176 has a unique design and simple controls. Unlike typical compressors, it has no threshold control. Instead, the compression amount is managed by the input level. The higher the input, the more compression is applied. Another unique feature is that the attack and release times get shorter as you turn the knob clockwise. Bass. For bass, medium or strong compression is often used, with the attack typically between 20 and 50 milliseconds. A ratio of 4:1 is standard, though sometimes a higher or lower ratio may be needed. Parallel compression is also common for bass and other instruments, as well as for vocals. Often this involves sending the signal to an 1176 compressor. Guitar. For distorted guitars, compression is often not necessary, but for clean guitar sounds, compression can be useful, sometimes to enhance the attack, sometimes to increase sustain. Medium compression is commonly used, with the attack set between 5 and 15 milliseconds, and the ratio somewhere between 3:1 and 8:1. Keyboards. Different keyboards and synthesizer sounds vary widely. However, you can start with settings similar to those used for guitar. Vocal compression. For vocals, attack times may vary greatly depending on the style. Typically, attack times range from 10 to 30 milliseconds, though shorter attack times can also sometimes be useful. Usually, light to medium compression is applied, with a ratio between 2:1 and 4:1.
You're trusting me today, not to hurt you, not to break your heart. I promise you, I will make you hate me one day. You've had your share of pain. You're trusting me today, not to hurt you, not to break your heart. I promise you, I will make you hate me one day. You've had your share of pain. You're trusting me today, not to hurt you, not to break your heart. You've had your share of pain. You're trusting me today, not to hurt. You've had your share of pain. You're trusting me today, not to hurt you, not to break your heart.
Master channel. On the master bus, a compressor can be applied either at the start of mixing or later during mastering process. This is a big topic on its own. Many engineers prefer mixing through a compressor, and I do the same. Common choices for this kind of compression are SSL Bassmaster compressor and the Neve 33609. Attack times can vary, often ranging from 10 to 30 milliseconds, and the ratio is typically between 2:1 and 4:1. And the most important point, this should be light compression, usually no more than 4 dB of gain reduction.
Tell me, what's the score? What are we all fighting for? Lost in whispers of the night. Do we make it run alright? The world is spinning round and round. Things are gonna go too far. I'm staring at the sand go down. Please tell me, baby, who we are. 'Cause I just feel for you. The thing that I don't need to name to make it true. 'Cause I just feel for you. The thing that makes me kinda happy, kinda blue. Tell me, what's the score? What are we all fighting for? Lost in whispers of the night.
Now let's talk about sidechain compression for unmasking and fixing frequency conflicts. So what is sidechain compression? It's quite simple. Sidechain compression occurs when the compressor listens to and analyzes the levels of one sound, but compresses another sound. A basic example, let's make the volume of a synthesizer pump in time with the kick drum hits. Nowadays, dedicated plugins are often used for volume shaping, but I'll show you the old school way just to demonstrate how sidechain compression works. Sidechain compression can also have more advanced uses. For example, let's say you want the guitars and keyboards to make room for the vocal whenever it's singing, but only in the center, since the vocal in our example placed in the center of the mix. Let me show you how to set this up. So in this example, I'll make the synthesizers give some way to vocals. So now it sounds like this. So this compressor is an insert in this synthesizer's bus. I'm gonna use sidechain. I'm gonna choose my vocals, chorus, vocals. I'm going to switch to external mode. So I need external sidechain to work. I also need these synthesizers to drop down a little only in the center, only in mid channel. So what I'm going to do here is to set this mid only. Attack should be immediate, so I set it to 0. Ratio 4:1 I think should work, and let's set the threshold.
Give me something time for a minute. I just wanna keep this moment with you. Can we live tonight with a minute? You know I can wait. Give me something time for a minute.
So that's it. Very easy. As you see, it's reacting to vocals, but compressing synthesizers only in mid channel. I hope compression is now clearer to you. Don't forget to check the description of this video for a link to my preset pack, which I fine-tuned for maximum sound quality and ease of use. And subscribe to my channel, there's a lot more valuable content to come. My name's Styx. See you next time, guys.